Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from the Wombats, Oh, the Ocean. Look, it should be obvious by now I've been putting off this review. For an indie rock band for whom I've always had a lot more fondness than the majority of critics, it should be telling that I've been slow to get around to this newest album from the Wombats. For a band that started their career in careening, high-energy indie rock, but has gradually added more synthesizers at the expense of their intensity or any sense of optimism, they always hit their best when they tapped into an instantly sticky melody or went for absolute broke with glorious abandon. They have some great albums. So naturally the choice is to get John Congleton to produce and then deliver their most dejected and bleak album to date. Lead singer Matthew Murphy has said this project was inspired by a beachside existential crisis, and I believe him. But who the hell told the Wombats that downbeat, minor key melancholy is a good fit for them? This is a band that at their best brings huge hooks that are borderline ridiculous, that transcend English big indie by having more wit and humor than they get credit. Making an intentionally uglier album with all of Congleton's uncanny textures certainly is a choice, one I thematically understand, but can't help but think that it takes away from their greatest strengths, and actually leaves them less interesting in its wake, even beyond utterly rote radio filler like Can't Say No. It's not like we're short on self-serious, fake smiles indie rock. Now, to be somewhat fair here, it does lead to the Wombats' most sonically diverse project, for better and for worse, because on the one hand, it's an interesting contrast between the throwback jangling groove of Blood on the Hospital Floor and the swaggering Britpop fuzz of The World's Not Out to Get Me, I Am, and Reality is a Wild Ride, and then the shuffling post-punk of My Head Is Not My Friend, or the piano-haunted electronic gristle of Kate Moss, the last of which worked way better than I expected. But on the other hand, in between Murphy's weak falsetto, he just sounds muted across this album as a whole, and then the overbearingly clunky drums and claps on I Love America and She Hates Me, and the gauzy synths and faux psychedelic compression drizzled all over Gut Punch, and the truly dismal album closer Lobster, they can't help but leave me really frustrated. I'm not against a downbeat ending. I loved Curveballs coming off of Glitterbug, but Lobster is this goopy slow jam with canned sounding vocals. The mixing and mastering is really inconsistent across the project, and that's among the band's worst ever songs in both composition and production. But I'm also the one who has said the Wombats are slightly more clever lyricists than they get credit, and there are themes and ideas here that make sense together. People forget that the Wombats are over 20 years in as a band, so the whole midlife crisis album makes a certain amount of sense, especially coming from a frontman who is reconciling his own self-destructive and antisocial instincts that seem to give him a lot more verve and energy than playing it safe, especially as when you get older, you get a different set of responsibilities, and you might be naturally inclined to overthink things. It's also a reason I really like Kate Moss. Side note, what is with UK nostalgia right now for her? Between Lambrini Girls and this within a month, it's odd, as playing by the rules with glamour seems to be papering over a world in mayhem that's spiraling out of his control, or how My Head Is Not My Friend highlights all of those impulses that he just has to go off the rails to feel alive. And they're also smart enough to then have The World's Not Out to Get Me, I Am, which is both recognition that he is accountable for the choices he's making, and they could well impact other people. That culminates really well in Reality is a Wild Ride. But there are three big factors that prevent me from liking this as much, and the first is that, let's be real, it's not unfamiliar territory for the Wombats. Glitterbug had a lot of similar themes, and they worked because they cranked the melodrama up to 11 instead of just trudging on through, which translates to the second factor of how weary and draining this album's attitude is. There's been this creeping nihilism in the Wombats material for a while now, and it just saps this project of any momentum for me. Yes, I know that Lobster tries to find an optimistic note and that the most strength comes in darkness, but when the song is utter crap, it becomes really hard to believe it. But then there's the slightly awkward final factor. The Wombats aren't exactly a deep band, and that's fine when the hooks can go off or they stick with isolated bits of cleverness across songs. But this existential crisis leads to some really flimsy societal commentary. I couldn't barely suppress my eye roll at Swerve 101 calling out TikTok models of slippery morals, and I Love America and She Hates Me is painfully shallow. It has the feel of being recorded before the current political climate, if I'm to be kind of charitable, but at least as a Canadian, doesn't come remotely close to meeting the moment. Real disappointing there. But as a whole, I don't know if this is the Wombats' worst album, but to me, it's a real disappointment. And given that we're a decade removed from Glitterbug, and this is their third disappointing album in a row, you know what? The problem might land on me for not calling this. Going back to my old review of Fix Yourself, Not the World from On the Pulse in 2022, I was struck by how much this feels like the more inward-focused version and sequel of that album. Same indie commercial core leanings with a smattering of post-punk and Britpop, the occasional electronic experiment that actually kind of works, the same bad falsetto and downbeat arc that tries for a little hope at the end, and it's too little too late. The big shift here, John Congleton, who adds a stranger edge, but it's more of a lateral shift, falling in this weird middle ground that's too uncanny to really have the hooks pop off, but not alien enough to make the rest of this all that compelling. And like with the last album, yeah, there are a couple songs that are decent enough, maybe even great. But this band used to be a lot better, and I don't think this is it. And I didn't need a beach to come to that realization. Most of the time I'd say hit or miss. You could probably skip it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. If you can't tell, I'm really disappointed with this. I really wanted to like this album. Glitterbug is so much fun, and some of their early works are so great, and this just does not click, and it made me really, really sad. But hey, leave your comments down there below. I've seen some people who actually like this more than the past couple albums, which is wild to me. But beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you want to get involved in helping support the channel, get albums on my schedule, yell at me on my Discord, link to YouTube memberships and Patreon are right over there. Don't feel obligated. Tough times, believe me, I understand, but the option is available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.